going to be again. All right. Okay, guys. Welcome to the lecture. It's finally nice to meet you guys. Please, if at any point you guys can't hear me, I would prefer you just message the WhatsApp group so that I will stop switching forth and back to from here to the to all right. This is going to take some time. I should have asked for your mail so that I would have sent this thing to your mail so that you can just join without accepting. But let's move on. So, like I was saying, if at any point you guys stop hearing me, please don't drop a message in the Google Meet. I might not see it. Just drop a message on WhatsApp to the group chat. Then I'll be able to access it with my phone. Then I can work towards it. So, welcome, guys. Welcome. It is an honor for me to have you guys here to impart you with the little I know. So what we want to do today is just like introductory stage to Microsoft Excel, basically to data analytics. This is not going to work tonight. Accepting. Anyways, so like I said, we are just going to do introduction today, and what I mean by introduction is first I would like to introduce Excel to people who are, I don't know, I think I expect people to have opened Excel once or twice here, but then in case there are some people who have not, so let's just, oh my god, let's just show them. So the just like Microsoft Word, the home ribbon is where you find your um if you want to edit your text, suppose you have five inside this cell. So suppose you want to make it bold, just like Microsoft Word, we don't really need to go about this. So then you can change the color, the background color, the font size and all. Then you can merge it, in the alignment section. You can just change the position of your cell. So suppose you want this to be on the left, suppose you want it in the middle, in the right, up. The up will not work until it goes this way. So let's say you want to merge two cells, you can just do that by merge and center. So then this one will work. Suppose you want to have it in the upper layer, middle, downward, and so on. Then you can wrap text. What wrap text does is um so suppose you have something in your cell, let's say the Excel file. Sorry. So let's say you have the okay, let's just leave it that way. So let's say you have this in your cell, you can see that it has overlapped to the other cell. And this is so because the other cell is empty. So suppose we have something in this cell, we will not be able to see um, the whole thing inside this cell. So let's say we have something in this cell called class, just anything, or let's just say C. Now this cell is occupied and this thing has refused to overlap. So it's just like when you are not around and somebody is using your room or something like that. So in order to make this thing visible, there are a few ways to do it. First, you can just expand the cell, the F cell, which is this. But now this thing might not work because sometimes you just want your whole data set to fit in at a glance. So you don't ever want to scroll left to see the remaining of your data set and everything. So if you have to widen some cells like this, then you are losing figures to the right side, and at every point in time you might just need to go to the right to see them. So why this is good, it might not work for some people. So this is where wrap text comes in. You can just wrap this text. Okay. And I think I really made a big mistake by not asking for your mail so that could have just sent an invite directly to the mail. Going back and forth with slow down. So like I said, that's how wrap text works. But mind you, when you wrap a text, it affects the entire row. So from here to the last column is affected without merge, without wrap text. So you have to be careful of whether you need to do that or not. Sometimes you can just then you can also double click on the edge and it will just fit in perfectly instead of dragging front and back, so on. So moving on, we have number. Number, I like to call this data type. So when we proceed to Power BI, if we go to SQL, if we go to Python, you will understand why data type is very, very important. In Excel is just numbers. So suppose we have a data here. Okay, like this one we have here, it is called general. Now suppose we have let's say date. So I'm going to use Excel function. Okay. All right. So suppose we have I want to use Excel function to bring in today's date. This is one thing that you will eventually know. So we'll get there. So this is a function in Excel that will return. I've never done this before, but is there any way to just put this thing in auto accept or something like that? I don't think it's possible. Please, if it is possible, you can just, if anyone has done that before, please just give me the hint on the WhatsApp group chat so that we can stop going back and forth. Now let's go back to what we're doing. Now I've used an Excel function to get today's date. So if you open this file tomorrow, the date will change to 13. That's how the date function, now the today function works. So now let's go back to this. Now you see the moment I click this, you see the data type has changed to date. Now when we click this, it was just general. Like when it is general, it means it's generic. It could be anything. So but it is always in your best interest to format your data in the right type. So, like I said, when we get to Power BI and the rest, you understand the importance. Even in Excel, you understand the importance. So, suppose I change this to, sorry, don't mind my voice. Sorry. So, suppose I change this to number. You see, it has changed. I don't know how it came up to this, but then it has changed. So suppose I change it to currency and so on and so forth. You can even change it to a long date. What we had before was short date. So you can change it to long date and so on. So that's that for number. Then you can use your currency. So you can change to naira from here, go on and on. We'll get there. You can change to percentage, reduce decimal, increase decimal, and so on. Then there's this conditional formatting. It's one of my favorite features in Excel. What conditional formatting does is, let's take a quick look at the data set I plan to use today is this. So suppose in this data set, you just want to look at all the, we have products. Then suppose you want to look at all the products that is mobile phones, which is this, then you really don't want to, focus your eyes on the screen. This is where conditional formatting comes in. You can just tell conditional formatting that, okay, go into this column, then paint anywhere you see mobile phone, paint it red for me so that at a glance I can just tell that, okay, this is mobile phone, this is mobile phone. It is beyond that anyway. So when we get to the the core use of conditional formatting, you will really enjoy it because it lets you see an overview of your data set in a glance without, even before you start preparing analysis, you're already seeing some things. So that's about conditional formatting. Then insert is just like basically you want to insert a new row, a new column, a new cell. You can actually do that too by just right clicking, which is here, insert and all. Then you have auto sum. Auto sum is like straightforward auto sum. So suppose you have two here, you have two here, you have three here, then you want to sum these things together. You can just highlight it, then click auto sum, which gives you 7. So then there's a formula for that. We'll get to that as well. I'm just introducing the whole thing to you. Then we have sort and filter. That's straightforward. So let's go to the insert ribbon. Now, insert ribbon is where you see your pivot table. I'm a little bit fast because I don't want us to, waste our time on these introduction aspects. So, in the insert ribbon, this is where you see your pivot table. Pivot table is one of the most interesting thing about Excel, Microsoft Excel. When you guys know pivot table, or for some people who don't, I think some people know pivot table already. But some for people who don't, when you know pivot table, the length you can go with pivot table, you will appreciate Microsoft Excel more. See, before pivot table, suppose we want to calculate, do some calculations, we have to type some formulas, do some formulas, some this, some this, some this. But since pivot table came on board, pivot table can do, any form of arithmetic and categorize it in any way you prefer within within a minute. So that's the function of pivot table. When we get to pivot table, maybe today or in the next lecture, you guys will really be in love with pivot table. Now let's go to add-ins. Add-ins is mostly for older versions of Microsoft Excel. So for people who are using 20, okay, by the way, I was going to say this. If you are using Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Office 2007, 2010. I don't want to believe there are people who use that, but in case we have people who use 27, 2010, come on, please stop. It's too way back. It's too way back. So you have to stop that. If you have 13, in fact, I will include people who are using 13. I know someone already using 13. Please, you should be using at least, even that you are the least outdated, you should be on Microsoft 2016. Even 2016 needs some add-ins. So please try and download the one I sent to the link. Then, so the add-in comes in where you need to, there are some formulas in this latest version of Excel that is not in the older version. So you need to go to your website, download some add-ins and so on. For instance, the unique function. So this function, if you are not using 20, if you are not using the Excel I sent to the group, you cannot access this function, the unique function. What the unique function does is that it will go to, so suppose in this worksheet, the unique function will go to this entire table and the entire column rather, and bring out the unique values inside them. You can see repetition, mobile phones, blah blah blah. So the unique function will go ahead into this column and bring only the unique values inside of that column. So that's what the unique function does. I just want to leave this place for now. So let's get back to what we're doing. So the add-ins comes for people for older versions basically. So you want to include different add-ons. There are a lot of things that is different between the older version and the latest version. So this is where the add-ins comes in. Now let's go to the chart. So of course, chart is like where you visualize your data set. So suppose you want to visualize the data set here, you want to visualize your profit by, okay, profit is not there, your cost price by, bar chart, pie chart, line chart, and so on. Yeah, you can do that. So slicer is just basically like a filter. If you can see, you will see a funnel there that represent filter. So this is what slicer does. Suppose you create a, use formula to, group this data. There's a way we can use formula to group this data. Then you want to slice, pivot table to group this data. Then you want to slice the view, what you are saying. Maybe you want to view for Davido only, for Olamide. Anyway, by the way, this data set is just an hypothetical data set. It's not real, it's nothing, it's just something I came up with so that for the purpose of this lecture, please. Of course, Border Boy is not selling in any company. So now let's move on to the page layout. The page layout is basically for, printing, designing your stuff before you print them out or before you, whatever it is. We will not spend much of our time here at all. I can't remember coming here for anything. So I don't know. you might, but I've never. Okay, sometimes you need to get rid of the grid lines and all those things, which is okay. Yeah, maybe a little, but then in the real sense, you don't have much to do here. So then formulas, except for defining, we will not come here because most of the things we do here, we can access them, without coming here at all. So this is just a wasting of time. For instance, the divine name is just like it will rename. I'll come back to explaining cell names and all those things and defining. So the data ribbon is another place that we'll use very well. The data ribbon is where you get is where you get data. Now, suppose you have a data set in a website, say in Wikipedia or in INEC website. Okay, someone is joining. Okay, when it is 8:30, we stop accepting people. Okay, nobody tries to join. Nobody tries to join. So welcome. All right. So the data ribbon is okay. I was saying that suppose you have a data set in, let's say you want to analyze the 2019 presidential election, and you go to view all. How do I view all? Admin all. Okay. So suppose you want to analyze the 2019 presidential election, for instance, and you have this result in a spreadsheet or even not. Suppose you just have the table, INEC has the table in their website. You can use the get data function to go to the INEC website, retrieve this data. Now this will take you to something called Power Query. We get to Power Query obviously. So this will take you to something called Power Query. Power Query is just an is a function. It's a separate tool on its own, but you can only access Power Query through Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Power BI. So Power Query is a nice feature. Many data analysts don't know about Power Query, or many Excel users don't know about Power Query. Power Query is where, because in the real world, your data set will not always be this structured. We call it dirty data. This is a clean data, by the way. But in the real world, your data will be so dirty. Maybe there is something wrong about the date. There is something wrong about, when we start doing those things, you will get a good view of what I'm talking about. This is a clean data set. I've done some things about this. I use this for the previous class I had, sometimes in February, I think. So um so let's go back to, okay, get data. So what get data will do, it will retrieve this data from any website of your choice, not just website, by the way. Let me just show you. So you can retrieve data from a file, which is Excel, workbook, CSV, SML, JSON, PDF, folder, databases like SQL, SQL, and so on. Azure, you can get data from Azure online and so on. Then you can get from web. So we use this a lot. We use this a lot. So like I said, many Excel users or the data analysts out there, they don't know about Power Query. I think I've had interaction with few people, and I was just talking about Power Query randomly, and they were just acting surprised. What is Power Query? I was like, okay, well, Power Query is that tool that you will need to structure your data very well. In fact, I don't see me analyzing any data without going through Power Query. And as a data analyst, suppose you are a data analyst now, most of your time will be spent on structuring your data. When I say structuring, I mean cleaning. We call it data cleaning, data wrangling, data cleansing. You come across different names, but they all mean the same thing: data cleaning, data cleansing, data wrangling, data normalization. All those things are the same thing. Like I said, this is a clean data, but you come across dirty, messy data around, and you will need Power Query to do them. So again, this is your query and connection. This one still links to Power Query. So you can refresh. Now you will wonder that, well, why would I need to refresh my data? Now, like I said, suppose we got a data from let's say Toyota. Let's say we went to Toyota's website. We got a data from for their sales or for their income, anything. Now, let's say after a year, Toyota has, oh, let me use COVID. Let's say we went to NCDC, I mean, what's that thing Nigeria uses? Okay, NCDC or whatever. Let's say we go to NCDC and retrieve data set of COVID-19 in Nigeria, and we'll work on that, by the way. And the number, the figure changes day by day. So this is the purpose of refresh. So when you retrieve data from such website, then you come back the following day, you want to know the latest, okay, how many COVID-19 do we now have in Nigeria? Surely NCDC would have updated that. Then you just click refresh, and this thing will go back to the internet without you going anywhere. To go back to the internet and refresh the data to the latest one. Then sort and filter. This is very obvious. So you want to sort your sales price from highest to lowest, or lowest to highest, and so on. Filter, you want to see certain things. Then data tools is where we have one of the nice features in Excel as well. So we have text to column, we use that. This is just to split names. Suppose you have United States, and now you want to split United from state. So you want United to be in a column, then state in a column. You can do that as well. You want to use duplicates, remove duplicate. Now remove duplicate is an alternative for the unique function. Unique function is a new feature in the Excel 20 Microsoft 365. If you're having Microsoft 365, your unique function should work. I believe so. Now, unique function is new, but before unique function, what we were doing before is called remove duplicate. So if you don't have unique function in your Excel, you can still achieve that. Okay, let me just try it for you. Let me just try this for you. Now, let's say you say unique. You are telling Excel to go to unique from here to here. Don't worry, I will explain that later. So these are the unique locations where our sales were made. So you can see these are the countries that were spread across this column. So it will easily now let's use the remove duplicate function. This is still just an introduction. Don't worry, if you don't get it now, you get it later surely. So let's say we paste this here. Then you come now, everything is highlighted. Then you come to your remove duplicate, expand no, continue with current selection, remove duplicate location. So you can see it's still the same thing, but I think this one is faster. Pam, 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 you're now with your stuff. So the unique function is just an alternative to the remove duplicate. Then we have something called data validation. Data validation is how you limit the kind of data entry into a particular cell. Suppose in this cell, you just want it to be you just want the cells here to, or let's say you don't want the figure that will be entered in this cell to be greater than 1000. Data validation is what you use. When we get there, you see. Then okay, forecast, I've never used those before. Data analysis, this thing you don't see them on your system, you have to put it on. It is part of the add-ins I was telling you about. Even though you are using Office 365 or so, you might not see this. You definitely won't unless you on it in the settings. We'll come to this as well. Now MySQL for Excel is something you will never see at all in your Microsoft Excel unless you've added it like I've done. But we'll get there. MySQL is a relational database tool that a data analyst must know actually. But we'll get there. We can't start learning SQL now. Now that's by the way with data. The review is just mostly what I do in the review is just to protect my worksheet or my workbook. Now what's the difference between a sheet and a workbook? A sheet is just this from year to year, this is just our sheet. So this is just a sheet anyway. Now you can have as many sheets as you want, sheet 3, sheet 2, then you can as well rename this. So suppose you want to say this is the sales, then you want to say this is the whatever expenses or anything you like. So this is you can rename them, then you can have as many as you want. You can have another sheet 2, you can have sheet 4, and so on. So that is now what is a workbook? A workbook is just the entire file. So you have sheet, it is 8:25. When it is 8:30, we stop taking in people so that they don't trust back. Wait, let me even check the WhatsApp so that I don't know if people have been messaging. Okay, somebody asked how many hours is the class? The class is 1 hour 30 minutes max because 9:30 I'm supposed to be in another doing something else. So the class is 1 hour 30 minutes max, so it can be before or but max is 9:30 we are done. Then what else? Nothing else, so I can proceed. Now I was talking about workbook. Workbook is just your entire file. So suppose the name of this file is called Crystal Pools. So Crystal Pool is the workbook. These different sheets are just the sheet inside the workbook. So I hope that is clear. Yeah. So so when you protect a workbook, you are protecting the entire file. So when you protect a worksheet, you are protecting. If you click protect worksheet inside expenses, so you are only protecting expenses. Your sales is not protected. And what protected does is that when you click protect worksheet, it means you don't want outsider to have access into these cells. So you don't want them to change anything. Now, when we want to build a standard spreadsheet, you will understand the importance of protect sheets. So in places where you have formula, you might want to protect it so that you don't want anyone interfering with that formula and so on. Now let's move to the view. The view is well, you can also remove the grid lines in the views. Mostly will not be here. Okay, the only thing you always come here to do regarding views is, let me return the grid line. Regarding the views is freeze panel. Now what freeze panel does is that, now look at this table. Now let's say we are scrolling down, you see the headings are, you know, we stop seeing the headings, the month, products, cost price and so on. We stop seeing them, so it's going down. So what the freeze panel does is it helps you freeze the panel, so that when you are scrolling, you will stop, the months will remain. So this is how it works. Now you can freeze panel, you can freeze the top row and the left side. These are the only two places you can freeze. So you can freeze only the top row, freeze top row, freeze first column, or freeze. When you say freeze pins, it means you are freezing the top row and the first column. So I hope you guys know that this is a, when you say a column, this is a column. This is something, this is called column, and this is called a row. I'm sure everybody knows that. So when you want to freeze panel, you might want to freeze only the first row, which is this. Sometimes you might want to freeze only the column. Sometimes you might want to freeze the two. So it depends on what you want to do. Now, depending on what you want to do, if I want to freeze the first row, which is this, I can just put my not I can, I must put my, I must click this place because this is the next row. So when I click this place and I press freeze top row, I'm telling Excel to freeze whatever rows in the upside of my work. So if I press this place and say freeze panel or freeze top row, Excel will freeze these two rows. So let's try it. So if I say freeze top row, you see month and January. Sorry, what did I do? Yeah, if I freeze from here, the first row will freeze. Yeah, sorry, the top row will freeze. How when you want to freeze more than two rows, when you want to freeze more than two rows, you use the panel. Yeah, sorry about that. You use the panes rather. So when you say this, that will come down to freeze. Okay, I've freeze rather. Sorry. So when you say freeze, yeah. So when you say freeze, you see the month and January are now freezed. So depending on how your worksheet is, you might want to freeze top row, first column, or any of these things. So I've unfreezed them. Then yeah, that's it. For developer will not show on your Excel except you Why are they coming late? I emphasize on this. Please, this is my friend. Why are you coming late? Please, you should not be coming late. You of all people. All right. The developer ribbon is not something that will always. It will not show on your Excel. I'm sure if you open your Excel, you will not see it unless you know decided to let it show. It is part of the setting. What this developer does is for what we call VBA. VBA. It stands for Visual Basic Application. Now, Visual Basic Application is an advanced level of Excel. Any company requesting for these skills is should be paying you well. Now, what VBA does is that when you go to a supermarket and you see people, you see the cashier, typing your orders, your change and all those things. They use VBA to create those things. Now, what VBA does basically is that it will record your formula. Whatever you do in VBA, let's say you change this thing to you calculate the net profit, you calculate gross profit, you calculate whatever correlation, mean, average, anything. VBA will record it. It's called, you see, record macro here. So VBA will record for you. Okay, I did not even check that notification. So VBA will record um your formula, then reuse it for you if you need it. So, well, when we get there, I don't know, depending on our progress, maybe we'll get there or not. But VBA is an advanced state to Excel. So that's why normally you not see it in your ribbon because it is for advanced levels. So back to introductory stage. Now we have something called cell. Now what you see here, these things you see, they are called cell. These little boxes around, they call them cell, and each one has its unique name. So how to get the unique name is simply by looking at this place. So this particular cell is called E3. E3 because it is under the column E and it's under the third row. So suppose I click this place, you can just know that it is under K and it is under 10. So makes it K10. So that's very straightforward. Now there's something else you can do. Oops. Okay. That was something else. Okay, are people messaging? If you are messaging me in this place, remember I told you I will not see it. Oh. Can I use the Power Queries for manage store record since it changes on daily basis? Can I also use the Power Queries to manage store record since they change on daily basis? Wait, I didn't say Power Query changes on daily basis. I yes, you can use Power Query to do what you're saying, but I never said it changes on daily basis. I'm just saying that in your Excel, when you come to the data ribbon, depending on where you get your data from, you just click refresh, and yes, it will refresh based on the current update from where we got the data from. This person can just okay, when we get to Parkway, you will understand this thing perfectly. Please, like I said, this is just an introductory stage. We will surely get to all these things I'm saying. I'm just trying to give you an overview of what Excel does. So please let's not be too ahead. Sorry, let's not be too ahead. So now, I was telling you about cell names. I've told you that the way to know what cell name this is B9 because it's under the B column and under the ninth row. So it is very important to know this because when you want to type your formula and you want to, suppose you have 500 in this cell and you want to reference this 500 in your formula, you will not say 500, you will say B9. So you have to understand this. And there's something else you can do about cell names. This is why I said something about the formulas where you see define names. You can just rename a cell and call it, maybe you want to call this place your net profit or your gross profit or everything. We'll get there. So we use the define name. Remember I told you you can access the define name by right clicking. So you can define name and go on and on and on. Yes. So I think we are done with the little introduction. Whatever thing that is needed to be known will be known as we proceed. So let me delete this. Remember, you can delete a sheet, you can rename a sheet, you can move, you can protect. The protect we saw at the view or reviews tab is also a protect sheet. So I want to delete this. Yes, permanently delete. Then I want to delete sheet 2. I just want to delete every other sheet and delete this as well. Yeah. So now let's work on, let me delete these things I brought in. So let's work on few things. Now, um, like somebody asked me a few days ago on LinkedIn that to start with, what are the things that are expected to be known in Microsoft Excel to become a data analyst? And that question is kind of, I don't think you will ever get a perfect answer to that question because many people will tell you different things. There are a lot of things. Excel is very, very wide. When I say wide, I mean very, very wide. In fact, we are still learning ourselves. So, but some basic things, at least as a data analyst, things you should know in Excel. Maybe I should just create a sheet for that. Let's call it the sum. We have something called sum. Then we have something called sum if function. So then we have something called count and count if function. We have something called define name. We talked about that. Define name, what define name does is that it helps you with your formula. So instead of saying subtract E3, so let's say you have E3 here, 500 as your gross profit. Sorry, if you are not an accountant or a business student, sorry about that. Gross profit is just the profit without expenditure. Let me just simply put it that way. Then you have your expenses here to be 300. Now, if you want to calculate your net profit, or if you want to simply subtract 300 from 500, in the standard way of doing this is to say E5, oh sorry, E3, which is this, minus EF3. So, well, for some people, it's kind of, too stressful. So they will just rename this to be gross profit. They rename this to be expenses. So in their formula, they will just type gross profit minus expenses. So it makes your formula easier and a little bit readable. So this is what the defining does. And what sum and sum if does is sum is very basic. You just want to add sum so and so, sum from here to here. That's just sum. Then sum if you add the condition to it. Sum, but don't just sum if something is true, sum if this person is, if this sales is from mobile phone. So in our sales table you can say, so let's say you want to know the total cost of mobile phones. You can just say sum. You cannot use sum in this case because sum will just bring in, it will just sum the whole thing including watch, television, camera and so on. You have someone else, I'm trying to join. I can't hear anything. Oops. Okay, please, can you guys hear me? Just someone should tell me if they can hear me. Or I don't know.
Yes.
All right, I think something is wrong with Omo. I don't know the person. Let me just check quickly. Please, somebody should help me to type it in the group that that person should just disconnect and reconnect so that you can maybe hear properly. Then, all right. Um, so I was saying, I was talking about the sum if. So I said if you need to calculate the total cost of mobile phones alone, then you will use the sum if, because you cannot just use the sum. The sum will calculate everything. The sum function does not have any criteria. It does not have anything. You just go and sum everything for me. But if you need to sum based on certain criteria, then use the sum if. Now let me even tell you that there's something called, okay, let me let me just type it there. There is sum if, then there is sum ifs. maybe it's a little bit confusing now, but it's not. Trust me. What's what the sum does is just sum everything for you. Now, sum if we only sum based on one criteria, then some ifs we sum based on, let's say you have two or more criteria. So let's go back to the sales and explain that. Suppose you want to sum for mobile phones, but remember the first mobile phone was sold in United States, the second mobile phone was sold in Nigeria. Now, suppose you want to sum for mobile phones only, you want to sum all the cost for mobile phones, you can say sum if where the product is mobile phones, that's one criteria. But now, suppose you want to sum mobile phones in United States. Now, you have two criteria. First, you want to sum this whole thing if this place is mobile phone and this place is United States or Nigeria or any country of your choice. So that's where you use the sum if. Then you can have it, you can even have three criteria. So, okay, sum it if it is mobile phone, then the seller is whiskey, because you see the first seller for mobile phone is whiskey, then the next seller for mobile phone is Olamide. So suppose you want to say some if the mobile phone is whiskey and it was sold in United States. So you can have whiskey in United States and whiskey in Nigeria. So these are just the little difference. And when we get there, we'll work on them tonight by God's grace. So when we get there, you will all see. Then the countif and countifs are just replica, except this time you are not adding them up, you are counting them. Oh, what am I doing? Count if count ifs. So the difference between the sum is, count if, and all those things from the sum is, yeah, is just that this one we sum, this one we count. So this one can go ahead and count the numbers of time Whiskey sold mobile phones in United States, or the numbers of mobile phone Whiskey sold in United States rather. Yeah, so that's that. Then the countive is by one criteria. This one is two or more criteria. The syntax, when I say syntax, I mean the
One
formatting.
is two or more criteria.
Sorry, who is that? I can't hear you at all. Please, you can put your question through to the WhatsApp group, then I'll be able to see it. Sorry. So let's go ahead with defining. I've told you what defining does. Now we have something called VLOOKUP, VLOOKUP, and HLOOKUP. Our next class will be, please, when you guys finish, you can just please, you guys should send me your mail to my DM, not to the group, please. Send your mail to my direct um, inbox so that I can put it in the guest list so that anybody can join at any time without going forth and back. Now I was talking about VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. Now, sorry, VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. Talk about this. This is an interesting topic. VLOOKUP means vertical lookup. VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, sorry. Then HLOOKUP means horizontal lookup. That's the difference between the VLOOKUP. So VLOOKUP will go ahead and okay, check everything on this row and return a corresponding value. When I'm saying it now, you will not get it. When we do it, you will understand it. So then HLOOKUP will look based on, VLOOKUP rather will look on vertically and check for a corresponding value. In SQL, when I say SQL, I mean SQL, they call it joint. In Power BI, they call it merge. So when you know VLOOKUP in Excel, VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP in Excel, when we get to Power BI, it will not be an issue for you at all. Okay. So then we have things, we are on things you should know, not like these are just basic things that you should know that will make you um a good analyst or to start with. Now there's something called SLOOKUP. SLOOKUP is very new concept in Excel. If you are using Microsoft 2016, forget it. You will not see S lookup. If you are using 2019, I'm not sure. Maybe it's there. Maybe. But then if you are using 2016, you can still add in. This is where you see sorry, add-ins. Where did we see add-in? Okay. Yeah, add-ins. So you can download S lookup from the website, then add it. But why would you do that? Just download the 2021 and enjoy your life. So again, I will tell you people to go and download that 2021. If you have issue with installing, just let me know. Give me a direct message. I will walk it through. So XLOOKUP is just um an alternative for both VLOOKUP and SLOOKUP. Both VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. So since the inception of XLOOKUP, people have stopped using VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. So they now use SLOOKUP. It's SLOOKUP can perform the function of both VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. So but we'll check everything out. Then we talked about data visualization, data validation rather, sorry. Data validation. So if you have a pen, you can jot this down. It's not compulsory. I'm just based on my own knowledge. I'm just telling you basic things you should know in Excel, and this is how we'll cover them up, but not in any particular order. I'm just listing them as it comes. So data validation. Another thing you should know in Excel is free spanner. We talked about that already. Free panes. Like I mostly call it panels. I don't know why. Free panes. Then I've talked about pivot table. Pivot table is, in fact, is a must. Is part, if anything is a must, pivot table it is pivot table. Pivot table is a must one, and it's very simple. I don't know. People try to run away when they hear the name. Maybe it sounds too touch or something else. I don't get. But pivot table is very simple. Then we have pivot charts, of course. So pivot, you can't have a pivot chart without having a pivot table. So our chart is where we'll now use our chart to create a dashboard, an overview of okay how the whole thing looks. Then we have conditional formatting. I've talked to you about conditional formatting. Conditional formatting, yeah. Then last but not the least is Power Query. Now, okay, there are just 11. When you know these things in Excel, I think, personally, I think, well, you are good to go. When you know how to use them perfectly, or not just preamble, when you know how to use this thing perfectly, well, you are now you are just a data analyst. But then when we get to pivot charts, pivot chart is where you will see the limitations of Excel and why Power BI is important. So for some people who cannot use Power BI on their system, yeah, I'm kind of a little bit sorry, because when you experience live with Power BI, then to come back to Excel, you are not even coming back. Let's not even talk about it. But when we start now, when we get to Power and pivot charts and all these things, you might feel like wow. But then when we now go to Power BI, I feel like, oh, so that chart was just rubbish and so on. So yeah, so let's start with this thing. Let's go with one, and we can copy. Okay, let's just leave it there. So let's go to sales. Now look at this. Look at this data set. Suppose you are a data analyst and you are giving this data set to okay, these are data set. Maybe your manager said, okay, do something about this data set. Give me some hidden insight or informations about this data set, because the true um what makes you a good analyst is finding in the insight. There are some, when you look at this data set, you might just looking at figures, but there are some things hidden inside this data, and that is your main job as an analyst. Okay, why is this thing so? Why is Whiskey not doing well in suppose in Nigeria, or why is Davido not doing well in the United States? I don't know, I'm just saying things. So these are things you come up with as a data analyst, or your boss is telling you that okay, we want to have more sellers, so we want Burna Boy to train them. So when Burna Boy trains them, which of these locations do you think we should send um the new sellers or the, yeah, to? So based on Burna Boy's um performance in these countries, you can now tell the boy, so Burna Boy did well in United States, so let's send anybody that Burna Boy trains to United States, because Burna Boy would have imparted that person with the way to do business in United States. These things are just, I'm just telling you things. So you have to think like an analyst, because there is no really, when your boss sends you this data, it might not be specific about certain things you want. He will just tell you, hey, go and analyze this data for me, or so on. Now the very best, or the people I feel like, okay, they are the gurus of data analysis, they are fond of saying something, that data analytics is not your Excel skills, that analytics is not your Power BI skills. Data analytics is not your SQL skills. It's not your Python skills, because yeah, you should know Python a little bit. They say data analysis is your ability to think. It's just this Excel, Power BI, and so on. They are just like tools for you to use. The real thing called analytics is your ability to think, ability to, reason out things. Now, without wasting much of our time, because we have less than 40 minutes to go, this lecture will end at least or max of 9:30. So let's go ahead and do something. Now, okay, there's a little bit, people get confused about, before I proceed, let me tell you something. People get confused. Data science, data analytics, or data, okay, analytics. Let's just say analytics, Then business analytics. Now people get confused. Which one is which is which, and everything. Well, initially I used to get confused myself, because at a point I cannot tell you categorically which one I was. Like, am I a data scientist? Am I a data analyst? Am I a business analyst? Now, anyway, you see, data analytics itself is just like, okay, looking for insight in a data set. So that's just the basic. You will see different definition, but all their jamboree or jargons is just telling you that look at a data set, find hidden insight. So that's analytics. Now, whether you're a data analyst or business analyst depends on where you apply this your analytics skills. So if you are using your analytics skills for a business purpose, you are a business analyst. Now, you are using your business analyst for a non-business purpose. Suppose you want to analyze COVID-19, or you want to analyze the rate of cancer, or whatever, just name it. Anything outside business, or you want to analyze education, all those stuffs, educational data sets. So then, why are people coming very late to this thing? I don't understand though. This thing will not work for me. Okay. So yeah, a business analyst is someone that just uses analytical skills to analyze a business data. So if you need definition for that, you can just pick that. But that's just the basic difference between data analyst and business analyst. So a data analyst needs all these Excel, um, Power BI. Now there's something called BI. It is actually BI, which stands for Business Intelligence. So Power BI is just a tool under BI. So they call it Power BI. So everybody thinks every BI is a Power BI. No. Now under Power BI, we have different tools like Tableau, Power BI, Metabase, QLink, and all those stuff. So basically, I just know how to use Tableau. I know how to use Tableau. I know how to use Power BI. I know how to use Metabase. These three. Why I prefer Power BI, sure. Why? Why? Because I'm kind of a Microsoft person. I have my sentiment towards Microsoft. I just like the company for whatever reasons. So So I stick with everything Microsoft does. The only way I choose something else over Microsoft is when it comes to SQL. SQL has there is MySQL, there is Microsoft SQL. I don't use Microsoft SQL. I use MySQL. That's the only place I'm cheating on Microsoft. Then, so a data analyst must know Excel skills. They call it spreadsheet. So under spreadsheet, you have Excel, you have Google, what do they call it? Google Analytics. That one is for Google, but most people use Excel. Then Power BI. I like Power BI. Aside liking Power BI, being a Microsoft person, I choose Power BI over Tableau because Power BI is sort of free, although you still need money to do some things or license account to do some things, but then you can still do some things with Power BI. Then you need to know SQL. Yeah, Python is not compulsory, but if you know Python is a plus, or R. There are some people here who knows R very well, I understand. So now as an analyst, business analyst, you need all these same skills. They're your business skills. For research, you need your accounting knowledge. Sorry, accounting. There's financial accounting, there is cost accounting, management accounting, and so on. So when you apply your accounting knowledge to these things, you become a business analyst. A data analyst might just uh, um adopt his statistics knowledge. So that's the little difference. Now a data science is a little bit of an upgrade to these two. I want to let you know that these two are basically the same thing, depending on the area you are using your analytics. But a data scientist goes beyond. A data analyst will not come here and start doing some this thing, some this thing, some this thing. They are more like into Python. They use Python to do something called machine learning, artificial intelligence, data modeling, and all this. And this thing you do them with Python or R. So they need SQL too. SQL is a must. So these are must know skills for data scientists. These are must know skills for data analysts. So a data scientist might not really need the Excel skills, although it's good to have them. So a data analyst does not really need Python or R, but then it's good to just have them as well. So when you know Excel, BI, SQL, Python, R, some people know these things. I don't know R at all. I've seen a tutorial about it. I don't like it. So I prefer Python. Then data science. So I think a little clarification on that is good. So now let's go to this. So what we are going to do tonight, we can call it business analytics because we are using our analytical skills to analyze the business data. Now we have less than about 30 minutes. So let's see what we can do with this data set. So now we have our cost price and we have our sales price. So basically, let's say we want to calculate the profit. So the profit will be, so let's call it profit. Now profit will be your your sales, your selling price. You see, the moment I click, oh, let me start by telling you that if you want to do anything called formula in Excel, you start with the equal sign. So if you don't start with equal sign, anything you type in formula is just like you are typing in Microsoft Word. So if you start doing D2 and everything, Excel does not recognize it as formula. So anything formula in Excel, anything I repeat, anything starts with equal to sign. So the moment you type equal to sign, Excel knows that okay, this person wants to type a formula. So when you type equal to, sorry guys, give me 30 seconds. My laptop is slow. I need to plug. Okay, finding out how to do. Anyway, let's go on. I think this one will do it till I'm having issue with plugging in over there. So let's say we want to find our profit. So our profit is going to be the selling price minus the cost price. for people who don't understand business, please bear with us. Just take it that we want to subtract the value here from the value here. So your selling price is now, remember I told you that you need to know how to access each cell number so that you will reference, if you want to reference to them in your formula, you can just type them out. Now this formula is D2, but instead of typing it, if you type D2, Excel will just pick it out. Now this is because you type equal to sign. Now Excel knows you are typing a formula. Had it been I didn't type the equal to sign, Excel does not recognize, Excel just see this D2 as a test. You are just typing. But the moment you say equal to, Excel will go ahead and, okay, you are referring to D2. So that's the importance of the formula, the equal to sign. So now if you don't type D2, you can just click it. So equal to D2. So it's always good to click. So D2 minus C2. You can as well type, or sorry, C2. So you see Excel has highlighted it too. Again, you can just click. Now when you do this, you see the result. So 98.4 minus 58.3. So now you may wonder, we've done this for the mobile phone that was sold in United States by Whiskey. You may now wonder, then this was sold in January anyway. So you may wonder, if I want to do this for the whole 172 sales that was made, would I have to type the formula every time? No, that is capital no, of course not. So what you can do is, you can click the cell where your formula is. By the way, when you click a cell in which you type a formula, you can just come to the formula bar and see the formula you typed in that cell, then click OK. Okay. So if you need to edit the formula inside this place, you can just come back here. Oh, I did not want to minus D2 from C3. I wanted to minus D2 from C3, then be there. So now we want to apply this same formula to work with everything downwards. So you just go ahead. Now there are two ways to do it. Now when you click the cell, you see this rectangular dot. Now you just put your mouse on that rectangular dot on the cross sign becomes smaller. So when it becomes smaller, you can just left click and hold. You left click and hold, then you drag downward. So when you drag downward, the whole formula will apply. So this, now when you click this, you see the formula here that, okay, it is D172 minus C172. So that's how Excel works. So if you don't want to do that, let me use my Control Z. By the way, Control Z is undo, just like it is in Microsoft Word. So if you don't want to do that, let's say, imagine if you have lots of rows, because in the real world, this is just a very minute data set. 172 rows is very small. In a real world, as a data analyst, you have thousands or even millions of rows, so you cannot go ahead and be dragging down till you get to the infinity. So you can just put your mouse back on this rectangular dot again and double click it, pam pam. So when you double click it, Excel will apply this formula till the last place for you. So you don't need to go ahead and drag down. I think that one is more efficient. So now we've calculated the profit. Okay. Now remember I was talking about, now we've used the sum, um the minus function. So of course there is minus. Okay, so let me tell you this, that this is minus in Excel. This is plus. This is plus. Now multiplication is not this. People make mistake of that. Multiplication is not x. It's not big S. It's not capital letter S or small letter S. Multiplication is this, asterisk. Then division is forward slash. Sorry. Division is forward slash. Then what else? Minus, plus, multiplication, division. Yeah. These things you need to know, especially multiplication. Multiplication is not s, please, it is asterisk. So if you say equal to 2 times 2, the guy does not know what you are saying. So he said we found a typo in your formula and try to correct it to 2 accept 2. Do you want to accept it? So yeah, we want to accept it. So Excel will now correct it for you. So that's 2 times 2, 4. So that is it. Please, the multiplication sign is not star. It is not s. It is asterisk. Now let's go back to everything. Now we found the profit per each sale actually. So suppose you want to know the total profit. So suppose you want to know the total profit, which is this, and you have to scroll down. You know the total profit is from, oh, now let's do something. Let's freeze our this thing. Now I told you you can freeze from the freeze panel. So you can freeze top row. Now so we can just, yeah, when we freeze the profit, the earnings will stay there. So if you want to get, okay, what's the total profit, that will mean you have to sum everything together. Remember I told you about auto sum. So auto sum is this. Now when you click the, normally you are supposed to type the formula out, like, okay, the formula for summing a large variables. No, yeah, I told you that it is sum. So normally you need to type equal to sum. Now, okay, you guys can see the sum if, then sum ifs and sum product and all those things. Now the sum is, when you type sum, you now open a bracket, number one. Now the good thing about Excel formula is that there is this little guy always around telling you things to do. So Excel is telling you, okay, sum, then since you've opened the bracket, it's telling you that number one, which is the first number. So the first number is cell H2. Again, you can just type H2 in your formula over there or click it. Then you now say to, so you now say to, that is colon. You say to H2 to H172. So you can just type it out actually, then you close your bracket. So if you see, as well as highlighted the whole thing that you selected, so then you press enter. That's sum for you. But the fastest way to do it is, you can just come down to the last place and click auto sum. And then we just type that same formula out for you. Another shortcut is alt. Alt in your system is alt, the ALT. So you can just say, you can just click alt equal to, that's another shortcut. So that's that, by the way. Now we calculated the profit for each sales. Now let's say we want to know the percentage of each profit towards the selling price. The percentage of 40% um on 98. So you can say profit, can say another one, like call it profit percentage. So you now go ahead and say, now I believe every one of us knows how to calculate the percentage. So if you want to know 40% of 98%, that is just 40% divided by, so you just say 40 divided by 98 multiplied by 100. So that's how to calculate percentage. So now I want to get the percentage of profit. So it's equal to, remember everything starts with equal to sign, 40 divided by 98. Now I want to tell you two things. Two things. If you go ahead and say 40 divided by 98 and click enter, we did not multiply it by 100. This is the approach in Excel. You will see why it is so. Now let's do another one and multiply it by 100. So let's do 40 divided by 98 multiplied by 100. I hope you guys understand what I'm doing, because it's just like the way you type, you write it down in your notebook. 40 divided by 98 and multiplied by, this is just the exact thing I've typed out here in this formula. So the forward slash is the division, the asterisk is the multiplication. Nothing different, nothing spectacular about it. So now you see this one is now in 100. This one is not. So remember I told you something about data types. So let's change this to, this data type is, we want this in percentage. So you now put it in percentage. It's saying 41%. Now if you put this one in percentage, this one is now saying 4,755 percentage. So why I'm showing you this is that if you are going to format your data type to percentage, don't include the 100, don't include the multiply by 100 in your formula. But if you are not going to apply 100, then you can include on if you are not going to change the data type to percentage, then you can include the 100. So let's take this back to general. Then let's reduce the decimal to, or let's change this one to two decimal places. Yeah, this is how to change to two decimal places. Actually, it is here. So let's change this one to two decimal places as well. Yeah, so you can see we have 40.75, 40.75. I hope you guys get the difference. This one, I've changed the data type to percentage, as you can see here. This one is just number, nothing else. So if I change this to percentage, it will now go in thousands. So that's the difference. So it's always good to remove the, it took me a lot of time to realize this thing, because then I used to do my normal percentage, this by this multiplied by 100, then I'll change it to percentage because I like to have the percentage sign. Then it will start giving me something I really didn't understand, but thank God I found it. So you guys don't have to go through that stress as well. So now again, like we did with the profit, you can just click palm and go to your this rectangular dot, put your mouse on it and do pam pam. That is just you double clicking it. Then it will calculate the percentage for each of the sales. Do you get? Now I was telling you about how to use some if and some ifs. So let's go ahead and try. We have 15 minutes, about 15 minutes more. So let's go ahead and see what we can do with some if. Now what we want to do is we have our sellers, which is, now let's see which seller sold the highest actually, or let's see which seller has the highest profit. So these are our sellers, these are our profits. Now we cannot go ahead and start calculating manually. Okay, what does whiskey have, how many profit does whiskey have, how many profit does Olamide have, and so on. So let's go ahead and bring our seller to a place. Let's get the unique variables of our seller. So how we do that is, remember I told you, you can use the unique function equal to unique. What unique does is that it will go to, and now when you open the bracket, like I tell you, there's a little guy that is always giving you direction. So it's telling you array. Array means where do you want me to go and bring these unique values. Then you see another thing by column, exactly once. Now anytime you see this anything in square bracket in Excel, you can see these things are in square bracket. It means they are optional, they are not really important in your formula. But the array is not in square bracket. It means it is important you tell this formula the array, which means where you want the unique values to come from. So I hope you guys understand that. So you want the array is just this. Now you have to click the entire um you have to click the entire column. Let me tell you something too. Sorry, for beginners, I'm sure some people understand everything I've said so far, but then for beginners, if you click the first cell in a column, you're only selecting this cell only. Now if you click this F itself, you are clicking the entire um column till infinity. Actually, we have about 10 million rows. So if you keep going down, you've selected everything. So it's always good. There are sometimes it is good, there are sometimes it is bad. So that is easier for you. There are sometimes it is good. Same thing is applicable to the rows. So if you click two, you are clicking the entire columns. So it goes to about thousands as well. Yes, yeah, something like that. Yeah. So now I hope you know the difference. When you click two, you are clicking the whole row. When you click A, you are clicking the entire column. So let's go back to our formula. We wanted to bring out the unique sellers out. So you go ahead and say equal to unique. If you are using Microsoft 365, Office 365, I'm sure you have this. If you are using 2021, or if you downloaded the one I put in the group chat, I'm sure you have this. But if you have any other version, you don't have this. So don't even stress yourself. So you have the unique. Now, the moment you are typing your formula, Excel will just suggest for you. Okay, you are typing unique. Now, when you see, you can just click tab to select it. Now, you open the bracket, then you now click the entire this thing, which is okay. Then you close the bracket and say bam. See? Oh, okay. This, I was telling you that there are sometimes it is okay to select everything, and there are sometimes it is not. Okay, maybe this time we don't need to select everything. So I'm going to go back to that formula and edit it. So let's say unique, because it was showing the other zero that was there. So let's say unique and just select it within the range of our data set. So select unique tab. It has opened the bracket. Then you say from this place. Notice where our data set start from. Sorry, sellers. So you can say from this place to when you want to say from so to so, you use the colon. So from F2 to F172. I want you to know that it is 172. The sellers, it is cell 172. So F172. So you can go ahead and say from cell F to F172. Perfect. Then you close the bracket. Bam, you get your unique. Now the zero is not there because our formula is within the range. So now we've gotten the unique sellers. Now we want to know their sales, or their profit rather, which is in this column, is in the one we calculated. So we want to know how much profit did Whiskey get, Davido, Olamide, and Burna Boy. Let's see which of them knows how to do business aside singing. So you start with equal to. Now this is where you use your sum if. This is where you use your sum if. You can see when you type sum if, there is sum if, there is some ifs. Now because the only criteria we want to use in this um the only criteria we want to use is one, which is just either it is Whiskey, Davido, or this thing. Then you use sum if. But the moment you are going to sum ifs, you are saying, okay, maybe we want to calculate for Whiskey, United States, then by then we have to do some other sum ifs now. So when it is sum if, you just click your tab. Now again, there is a little guy that is always telling you what to do next. This is the beauty of Excel. There's always this guy around explaining your formula to you. Now it's asking you for range. Yeah, the range in this case is, where is these sellers you're asking me to go and bring. Well, oh, sorry, my laptop is about going off. Please let me just try and plug it very well. Sorry guys. Yeah. All right, I'm talking. So um so the range this thing is asking for is, where is our sellers. Our sellers are in this cell again. The cell we reference to when we wanted to bring out the unique values. It's just the same thing. Now remember, it is just h2. Now this time I'm just going to type h2 to h172. I hope you guys remember. Am I using h? No, it's f. Sorry, it's f2. You see, this is why you have to be careful with it. It is f2 to f172. Then you close the, sorry, you don't close the bracket. Then you type comma. Now you see, the moment I type comma, the little guy has moved on to tell me, okay, it's now okay, you told me the range. So what's that criteria you are looking for? Now let me explain a little bit of trick for you. Some people are fond of doing this, which is it will work, but then it is completely unprofessional, and I will advise you not to do it. So they are fond of doing this. They will say whiskey. Not in this particular sector. I'm telling you that when people type something, they are fond of typing out their criteria as this. Now, when you say this, then press comma, then you say sum range. Now, your sum range is okay. Now, you told me that okay, your sellers are in cell F2 to F172, and you are telling me to go and look out for whiskey in this cell. You see, the cell is highlighted. So, what do you want me to add when I do all these things? So, you know, that's where you see your sum range. So, your sum range is the profit, which is H162 to H172. I hope you guys understand this formula. If you don't worry, I can always come back to it. So then that's the end of the formula. You close your brackets. Now what this thing will do, let me explain your formula to you once again. You are telling Excel that go to, this F2 to F172 is in blue color, then it is in blue color here, so you can always understand which one represents which one. So you are telling Excel that go to cell F162. Remember the colon means 2. So F2 to F172. Go to F2 to F172. Look for whiskey. Now, whiskey has to be in quotes, because whenever you are typing string, either in SQL, um, Python, or when you are typing any programming language, actually, even for web developers, they have to put anything in quotes. Anything that is not a function, you are the one typing it out. For instance, Excel does not know anything called whiskey, David, or anything. So you have to put it in quotes because it exists within your data. So you quote it. Then you now say go to F2 to F172, look for whiskey. So wherever you have whiskey, sum up the corresponding value. So what Excel will do is Excel will go to this place, whiskey. Okay, this is whiskey. Okay, 40.1. Boom, it will pick it. Excel will go to okay, this is whiskey. Okay, 158. Boom, it will pick it. Go to whiskey there. Okay, 158 again. Like that till the end actually. So that's the meaning of this formula. Now let's click OK. So now what you see here is 2015 naira is the total profit whiskey made. Now again, I told you you don't always have to retype your formula. You just click the um little dot here and you drag it down or double click it to. Now let's do that and see what will happen. So let's say palm. Now something has happened. You may wonder, "Oh, how come both of them, the remaining three, sold the same thing?" The truth is they did not. Now let me explain it to you. This is a little bit it might be a little bit technical, but it is not. If you I hope you guys are recording it, then you can always go back to it. Now what is happening here? I was telling you about how it is a bad approach to type out whiskey because there's a better way to do it. Now what Excel has done here is that whiskey is adding it from cell um F2 to H2, then to F172, then to H172. Now let's see what this formula is saying. This formula for Davido now. Let's see the formula. You see the formula is still whiskey. It's not picking Davido because the formula, this whiskey is in code. So it will always repeat it for whiskey. Now then you notice that the range has changed from F2 to F172 to F3 172. Now this might confuse you, like what's happening here. Well, what is happening is called we have we have something called absolute cell. Let me type it somewhere else. That's something called absolute cell reference. Then we have something called relative cell reference. Okay, now I'll quickly explain this two to you. Now what Second light, oh God. Okay. So what absolute cell reference does is that suppose you have two, then you want to multiply these two by every variable I'm going to type out now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's just use that. Now you want to multiply 2 by 1. So you say this multiply by 2. Sorry, multiply is asterisk by 1 rather. So it will give you 2. Now if you drag the formula down, you see 0, 0, 0, 0. What is happening is that Isaiah has multiplied 2 by 1, then he's multiplying something here by 2, then he's multiplying the 0, because when the cell is empty, it is 0 anyway. So he's multiplying the 0 here by 3, which is 0, is 0 here by 4, which is 0. So this thing is called relative cell referencing. That is, it is multiplying or applying your formula to the relative cells. So this one is applying to this one is applying to this one is applying to this. That is the same thing we have here. So when you drag the formula down, the whole thing will change from H2 because you shifted down. The relative cell reference will also shift your formula down by going to, instead of F2 to F172, then H2 to H172, the formula will now go to F3 to F173 to H2 to H173. So that's what the formula does. Now look at for Olamide. Olamide has gone from F3 to F4 to F174, H4 to H174. Look at that of Burna Boy. See, it has gone to F5. So like that, as I will keep on, let's say we have the formula downward to whatever. You keep saying it this way. So now you just have wrong formula. If you are not careful, you see, it has gone to F17 to 8 to F187. So the issue we have here is called, we have two issues actually. We have two issues. So when we are done with them, I think we'll close for the day because it's almost 2 minutes to the time. So now let's go back to this to explain the difference between relative cell reference and absolute cell reference. I've told you that relative cell reference will always act or apply your formula relatively to the to the cell based on the first formula. So now let's say you want these two to be stagnant. You want two to multiply by 1, you want two to multiply by 2, you want these two to multiply this 3. So you don't want it to change to relative, then you want these two to multiply by 4 and so on. Then you use something called absolute cell reference. You might not get it at once, but as we work more and more on data sets, I'm sure you understand it better. So before I do that, let me just tell you something. That if I put 3 here, it will now give you 9. So that's relative cell reference for you. Now let's go back to absolute cell reference. Now in absolute cell reference, you now come back to your formula. There's a little adjustment you will do to your formula. So remember the P10 is red, which is representing this. Then the zero letter O10 is this, representing the blue one. So remember, we want this to remain absolute. We want these two to remain absolute. So if you want a formula to remain absolute, you want this formula to remain on a particular cell. You change that particular one to absolute. So this one, when it is naked like this, I like calling it naked because it is just plain the way you type it. P10, nothing extra. So I call it naked. When it is naked like this, then it is relative. Now to change the these two, which is 0, 10 to absolute, you include something called the dollar sign. Now everybody knows what dollar sign is. So you put it at the front of, at the back of 0 and at the front of 0. Now it is getting confusing, but believe me, when you put your heart to it, it is not. So it is now S dollar sign 0 dollar sign 10. So even if this is 1 million cell, 0 1 million, you just put the dollar sign once after and before and after the alphabet. So yeah. So now our formula has changed. So when you now go back and reapply the formula, before we reapply the formula to these cells, I want you to see the little difference. Now, when I move from this place to this place, I want you to see the difference in the formula. So this one now, we have one absolute cell reference multiplied by relative cell reference. So this will give you 2 times 2 anyway. Now let me change to this. I want you to see that the the 0, which is now this, as you can see, is the formula is still like the old one. So to now apply our changes, you have to drag it back again. So when you now drag it back again, everything is now the way you want it. So what is happening here now is that these two is now multiplied by these two. We've told this one to remain stagnant. We told the cell let this two remain stagnant. So these two multiply by 1. So these two multiply by these two. I'm sure some of you got it anyway. So this is what we have to now bring into our new formula. This one is quite simple because it's straightforward. So what we want to tell Excel, there are actually two ways to correct this thing. We'll talk about one tonight, then move from it in the next class. So now you go back to your formula. Remember, this is your formula. Then you now say, the criteria where we want our this thing. We want everything to remain stagnant. Don't go, don't shift. Just remain from F2 to F172. So you come back and add your dollar sign at every um, side of the alphabet. So you put it before S, before F, and after F. That's just it. Then you come to the next one, put it before F and after F. That's it. Now let me tell you a short code for it, a shortcut rather. So when you go to the back of H, just press F4 on your system. F4. F4 will automatically change your this thing um to from relative to absolute. It's just the same thing, adding the dollar sign to it. So come to the back of the next one, which is F4. So that's it. Now your formula is close to perfection. The only hiccups in your formula now is whiskey. So, but let's go ahead and do this. Um, so now let's apply it. So now look at our formula. When you look at this, it looks a little bit awkward. It's like you're typing one gibberish or something, but you are the one that type the formula. You know what you type actually. So now okay. So let's click OK and apply the formula to everything. Now what do you see? You wonder, did Whiskey, David Dobon, and all of them, did they make the same profit? Obviously, no, they did not. So what is wrong with this formula again? I've changed this thing to from relative to absolute. What is wrong is what I initially told you, that typing out Whiskey, now everything has changed to absolute cell reference. So when you go back to Davido is still within the range we specified. Same thing with Olamide and so our formula is now close to perfection. The only thing is that you see that at every point it is still whiskey. It is still whiskey everywhere. So that's because we typed it. Now if you come to Davido and change the formula to and change whiskey in that formula to Davido. Mind you, Excel is not case sensitive. There are some programming languages that are case sensitive. Excel is not programming language anyway, it's just a spreadsheet. But even if you type capital letter D or small letter D, it's still okay. So when you change this to the video, you see the figure has changed. This is the right figure for the video actually. And when you change this to Olamide, you see Olamide, everything change. Then you have to change this to Burna Boy. But now you might wonder, if I have 10, 20, 100 or 1,000 sellers, would I have to change everything? No. So this is where it is a bad approach to type the name. So what you can just easily do is delete that whiskey entirely and just go ahead and click where you have whiskey. This is why we brought out the unique name of the sellers initially to reference them. Now you cannot reference them inside this column because it will now shift. Let's say you have Davido, it will now shift to Whiskey. It now is Davido, Olamide, Whiskey again, Olamide. So you have to bring the unique sellers out first, then reference to it in a with a formula. So you know Whiskey is now in K2, Davido is in K3. Now you have to let it remain as relative cell reference. Remember we changed these ones to absolute cell reference, but we want K2 to always change so that when we apply the formula to the next one, this K2 will just change to K3, which will now represent the Davido. I hope you guys are getting it. So now this formula is perfect. So when you look at this formula, you are saying go to this range, look out for this guy, then sum of the corresponding value from this guy. So remember, the only thing you are not going to change is that criteria. You will not put it in absolute, so that you want it to change along the way. So you click enter, then you can now apply. So you see we get the whole thing now. Burna Boy has changed to the respective values. So when you now click this, somebody joining this late. Are you serious? Are you are you kidding me? Okay. So anyway, go back to this. Now 20. So we have the profit for each seller actually, which is Whiskey made to 20,050. Now let's change this to dollar sign so we can have it. Then let's reduce the yeah, let's just have it like this. So this guy made $2,015. This guy made, so I think Olamide has the highest profit, followed by Whiskey and okay, Burna Boy. So this is it about some if. Now we did not move to some ifs, but in our next class we will move to some ifs and so on, and many things actually with this same data set. When we've done a lot with this data set, then we'll go ahead and do some things more about these formulas in another data set. Now we might not use a business data again because of people who are not business oriented, people who are not commercial students. Let me just put it that way. There are some science class students here, there are some art students, so they might not really understand this profit thing we are doing. So in our next data set, not in our next class now, in our next data set, where we will use these same functions again. So don't fret if you don't understand what we did today, because we will do more and more of it till it sticks to our brain and something like that. Sorry. So this is where we'll end our lecture for today. In our next class, we will move on from this stage. But today, what we've talked about is the Excel interface, the sum ifs, freeze panel. I've basically explained these things to everyone, what this thing does and all these things. Now, when we put them to use in our next class, then we'll get a better view of, you know. But now I hope you guys can see or have an understanding, a little understanding of what Excel can do. In our next class, we'll talk about okay, Whiskey has 2015 sales. Okay, in how much did Whiskey make in United States, Italy, Nigeria, and so on? Then we can use that to say okay, Whiskey is doing well in United States, but it's not doing well in Italy, or Whiskey is doing well in Nigeria, is not doing well in Canada, something like that. So we can use that as part of the things we tell our boss that okay, sir, Whiskey is doing well in this kind of region. Let's limit his work to this thing. And since Davido is doing well in, let's not allow every one of them to just be doing business in the whole city to reduce cost. So let's say Whiskey focus in your best area and so on and so forth. So if you have any question now, I think I will entertain them. Just few. If you don't, it's okay. You can come to my DM too. If you don't like to ask questions openly. So you can just But some people are saying, can you share the data set for us to work with it? Definitely, definitely. I will send the data set to the group, then you guys can work. My network logged me out when you explained Power BI. Well, I did not explain much about Power BI actually. I was just talking about it. It's not really, you didn't miss much. So, there was the next question. My network logged me out when you wanted to explain the difference between data analyst and data science. Can you repeat that? Well, I was saying that a data analyst. So okay, if data science is a pizza, if data science is a pizza, just think of data analytics as a slice. So let me just use that reference. If data science is a pizza, think of data analytics as a slice or two or more slices actually because it's not that bad. Data science they require the skills of not necessarily Excel, but then not necessarily Power BI because they don't analyze. They just do something called um, machine modeling. Now think of um, think of Spotify or Apple Music. Now when you log into Spotify, when you input your dates, your age, your whatever, you are from Nigeria, you are so 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 age, you are a male, you are a female, then Spotify will now say, okay, based on this information, this person will likely like this type of music. This person will likely like this type of music. Now, how did Power BI conclude? Sorry, I said Power BI, sorry, Spotify. How did Spotify conclude this? A data scientist must have told Spotify that look, based on certain data trends, this is what people between the age of 10 to 15 likes. Now, it will now break it down to in Nigeria, in Senegal, in so based on data, not based on assumption. So a data scientist will collect data, they will use Python to run some data modeling. Then this data modeling will now suggest to to a user that okay, based on these things, you like um you like hip hop or you like old school. So these things are not always perfect, obviously, but then there's something called data. They do this data integrity where they are certain that okay, the output or the result of their data modeling or machine learning, artificial intelligence is 90% correct, 85, 50, and so on. I don't know if we will get there because before we get to those places, you have to be a data analyst first. I think, or it's not a standard, it's just my way of thinking that you have to be a data analyst first before transitioning into data science. So I hope that answered that person's question. Then I also talked about business analyst. I said the difference between a data analyst and a business analyst is that the first one, we analyze random data that are not business related, maybe education in Anambra is better than education in Lagos State for research, just an example. I'm not campaigning for it, sorry. Then a business analyst is someone that analyze data based on like what we just did. Suppose we finish, what we are doing is business analytics, not data analytics per se, because we are analyzing a business data to recommend things to our boss. So eventually we'll still do some recommendation to our boss. Eventually we'll still take this when we want to start our Power BI tutorial, we'll still use this data set to start and say, okay, now you see the importance of Power BI, how it is easier and all that. What else? I later got the explanation. Okay, the person later got. Can we? Okay, this class is very interesting. You may still have to work with the sum if command where the dollar sign comes in maybe in our next class. Definitely. Definitely, I will do that. Like I said, I think before when these things I told you about, all these things, we will, I'm not just teaching them to you once. Like even the sum that we did, the sum if and everything, count if, name, define, VLOOKUP and all, we will not do them once. We continue to repeat them with different data sets. So by the time we work on two or more data sets, like our next data set will not be about business. Maybe we'll go to INEC website, they will pick out um we'll pick out one election result. Maybe they have 2019 or whatever year, or we can go to NCDC. I don't know if I got that right, and bring out the COVID-19 data set and see where the COVID-19 is killing more people in Nigeria and all those stuff. And make recommendation to Buhari if he will ever allows us. So what else? I think that's all. Please, if you have any other question, you can always put it in the group or in my DM if you don't want to message the group. Then eventually I will have to lock the group because I don't want people to, some people are very busy. There are some big people in this group actually, so we should not disturb ourselves. So with that, we are coming to the end of our lecture, guys. I will communicate the next lecture. Please, if anybody knows how to off a comment, um, how to turn off comment on LinkedIn and how to lock DMs, please, I really need that. People are attacking me on not really attacking the thing. I hate turning people down. That's the issue. And I don't want to have many people here too much. I just want to limit the whole thing. So I wish to off my DM so that they can't message me. And I don't want to block. Then I wish to turn off the comment on that particular post I made. I was not expecting it to boom out that way. So please, if anybody knows how to do that, I really appreciate it. Then yeah, that's the end of the lecture, guys. I will communicate the next time, the next lecture to you guys in the group chat, and from there we move. So thank you. Oh, somebody, you guys message me. Yeah, I can't hear anything. Yeah, I think you are too fast. So just try and take it bit by bit. Well, that's the purpose of recording so that you can always go back to the video. I try as much as possible to record myself. So hopefully the record comes out well. I've been having issue with my earpiece. So I hope the recording comes out well. If it comes out well, I will upload them in my YouTube channel. Then you guys can, from there download the video and watch over again. But you really don't need to because we will always come back to everything we've learned today in another with another data set. So now I'm ending the lecture. Wishing you guys a good rest. Thank you. Bye bye.